Imagine the following scene. A frustrated 22-year-old talent sits on the bench during another tense night at the Chase Center. Outside, the crowd is roaring. The arena shakes with every Curry three-pointer and every explosive move by Jimmy Butler. But there, at the end of the bench, Jonathan Kuminga watches the game with an expression that mixes disappointment, fatigue, and perhaps a flicker of hope. Hope that this isn't his final game wearing a Warriors jersey, but rather the beginning of a new era, one in which he's more than just a complimentary piece. The era where he becomes the lead character in a brand new story. And that story might begin in Chicago. The proposal is already circulating behind the scenes in the league. A scenario created by journalist Brett Siegel from Clutch Points places Jonathan Kuminga and Tracy Jackson-Davis as new additions to the Chicago Bulls, while Golden State will receive Ayo Dosunmu, Jalen Smith, a 2029 lottery-protected first-round pick, which turns into 2 second-round picks if it doesn't convey, and a 2028 second-round pick. At first glance, it might seem like just another offseason trade, one of those that flood Twitter with rumors and headlines for a few days. But when broken down calmly, it reveals something much larger, a desperate attempt by two franchises to reinvent themselves. On one side, the Warriors are trying to stretch the lifespan of a tired dynasty, fighting against time, the salary cap, and inevitable passing of the torch. On the other side, the Bulls, a team buried in irrelevance since 2022, with no identity, no playoffs, and no marquee name to lead the franchise. And in the middle of it all, Jonathan Kuminga, the fragile link between the Warriors' glorious past and a potential rebirth in Chicago. Kuminga entered the NBA in 2021 as the 7th pick of the draft, surrounded by high expectations. Tall, athletic, aggressive on offense and versatile on defense. He seemed to have all the tools to be a modern superstar, but he landed on a team that already had everything. Talent, chemistry, hierarchy, a winning culture. For Kuminga, despite still playing at a high level, but also being represents a short-term, and after 3 years, the frustration began to overflow. In the last season, he posted solid numbers, 15.3 points, 4.6 rebounds, 2.2 assists, shooting 45.4% from the field. But his role was never stable. In the playoffs, when everything matters more, he played just 2 games against the Rockets and only got real minutes against the Timberwolves because Stephen Curry got injured in Game 1 series. Worse yet, Steve Kerr benched Kuminga in the final regular season game and in the play-in matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies. A clear message that the trust between coach and player was gone. Now, with his restricted contract nearing its end, the situation has become unsustainable. The Warriors offered him 2 years for $40 million. Kuminga turned it down. He wants more. Not just money, but a bigger role. A franchise that sees him as a pillar, not an accessory. And the Bulls are emerging as that opportunity. Willing to offer 4-year, $115 million deal, starting at $24 million in year 1. Chicago wants not just his talent, they want his identity. The trade also includes Tracy Jackson-Davis, a young big man who stood out in limited minutes with the Warriors. He comes in to bolster a front court lacking youth and energy. Although all the spotlight is on Kuminga, TJD could be a valuable asset if given the right development. But what do the Warriors get out of this? The answer might not lie in the names they receive, but in the context. Ayo Dosunmu is a young, explosive guard who can bring energy and defense to the backcourt, especially if Klay Thompson eventually leaves the rotation. Jalen Smith, on the other hand, is a big man still searching for consistency, but who could find his place in a more flexible system like Kerr's, especially if Al Horford retires, leaving a hole in the front court. In addition, the draft picks are crucial. A team that still wants to compete but knows its era is ending must think ahead. A first-round pick, even a protected one, and a second-rounder are important assets to begin that transition. It's not the kind of return that would make a Warriors fan jump with joy, but it's the kind of move that builds a bridge to the post-Curry future. And speaking of Curry, it's impossible to ignore that time is running out. At 37, with a recent injury history and carrying the emotional weight of an entire franchise, Steph can no longer do everything by himself. And Jimmy Butler, impactful as he is, also has his physical limitations. Kuminga's arrival was supposed to fuel this new generation, but between benchings, mistrust, and a lack of opportunity, it became an unsustainable relationship. On the Bulls' side, the situation is different but just as urgent. Since Jimmy Butler's departure, the franchise has lost its way. They tried rebuilding around Zach LaVine, then DeMar DeRozan. Nothing worked. The past few seasons have been marked by frustration, injuries, and, most importantly, a lack of identity. A team with no face, no voice, no leader. This is where Kuminga comes in. In Chicago, he can be the guy. He can have the ball in his hands, the system built around him, the minutes he always wanted. He can lead not just the offense, but the entire project. At 22, with a long-term contract and a team ready to embrace him, he can become what he's always dreamed of, an all-star, not by popularity votes, not by charisma, but by merit. And that alone changes the entire equation. Because yes, there are still doubts. Kuminga needs to improve his game IQ, his free throw shooting, just 66.8%, and his consistency from deep, 30.5%. He needs to prove himself not just as an explosive athlete, but as a cerebral player. But few players have a ceiling, and few have the opportunity he now has. Chicago is a city used to legends, but it's also a demanding city. If Kuminga can win over the fans, with grit, with leadership, with presence, he can write his own story in a passionate market. And for a player who spent 3 years living off bench minutes and empty promises, that's worth more than any paycheck. The big question is, are the Warriors ready to let him go? And more than that, are they ready for what comes next? Because this trade, at its core, isn't just about Kuminga. It's about accepting that the cycle is nearing its end, that the dynasty needs to reinvent itself, and not all former prospects will be part of the next chapter. Maybe that's the biggest lesson in this negotiation. You can't hold on to everyone. Sometimes, to keep a star shining, you have to let it go. And the Warriors, who mastered this in the past, with Iguodala, with KD, with Poole, will now have to apply that same logic to Kuminga. For the Bulls, the trade is a risk, but a necessary one, because what's at stake isn't just the next season. It's the rebirth of a franchise that lost its direction. And if that rebirth comes from the breakout of a 22-year-old who was once overlooked by one of the greatest teams in history, well, that would be a beautiful story to tell. In the end, this trade has potential to be more than just a number on the cap sheet. It could be the turning point in Kuminga's career, the signal of transition in Golden State, and the beginning of a new chapter for the Bulls. 3 stories intertwined in one trade. 3 paths being rewritten at the same time. The 2025-26 season is coming, and with it, the chance to see this plan come to life. Kuminga with the ball in his hands at the United Center, leading a team starving for hope. Though Sunmu heading back to California. Try keep the final years of shine alive in San Francisco. Smith seeking his reinvention. And the picks quietly waiting on the horizon like seeds of something yet to come. Now tell me, is this trade good for both sides? Is Kuminga ready to lead a franchise? Are the Warriors right to let him go? Or will they regret it when they see him shine in another jersey? Drop your thoughts below. I want to hear your take. And if you like this analysis, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications. Because in the next videos, we'll keep tracking every move in this crazy NBA market. Thanks for watching all the way through, and see you in the next chapter of this soap opera we all love so much, the NBA.